Okay, we are avoiding doing the housework, so we're also doing some Sketchup work, and specifically we're doing some sketchy physics work. So I want to introduce you to the fact of how kind of Inventor and some of the kind of parametric modelers work, and that is that you actually have to think about the individual pieces of wood or metal. So I'm going to just kind of make in sketchy physics to show you how these things go together by the concept being prims or basic prismoidal shapes which allow the physics to occur. So I'm going to do that by drafting a window with all of its typical parts, and I'll kind of fix this up as I go along the process here of scraping the house. So we're going to go to make sure that we start with our model in the right units. It's architectural. I'm just going to make this basic window to start 3 by 2. So I'm going to come out here and realize that I could do it by shapes right away, but I'm going to try to do it just by basic drafting. I'm going to drag something here, and I'm going to make it 2 feet, 3 feet. That kind of gives it there. I'm going to give it a general width by offsetting it along the bottom here. I'm going to go ahead and even do this, get rid of that right click erase, and then right away go ahead and get rid of my axes. So I can start to do things like that. I'm going to offset that, not using the offset command, by using the control copy command, and not using that one. Hitting escape here, using the control from a spot there and going 3 inches. And then doing the same thing here. Spacebar, I can click that, M for move, control for copy, and then it should know right away, it should know it's 3 inches because it could remember that from the last time. So that's a nice time saver. So I'm going to do the same thing off here on the sides. This time I'm going to make it 2 inches. Control, that's the move command. I'm going in and I'm just telling it 2 inches in that direction. And once again with this here, select, spacebar, select, M for move, control for copy there, and it should remember 2 inches. I've got all that done now. What you'll see in the fact is I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to just then design a lip around the top of this. So I'm going to do this first by going ahead and I'm going to actually keep that piece there and keep this piece there and there as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and now do an offset. I don't know that it's going to let me do that, but I'm going to see if it does. I'm going to try to use the offset command here. And it won't do that until I do this, until I draft a line on top of another line, which means gives me the face. Didn't quite get that, did it? Unless I go out to here, it got rid of that one. And now I can do an offset command. I'm just going to offset a 1/2 inch. I'm going to say 3/8 at this point. So I'm going to take this here, offset that, and then 3/8, it being inches. It now has done an offset there, and I'm going to assume that this window is made out of 1 inch stock. This is probably a little bit wrong, but I'm going to go ahead and at this point, I'm going to go ahead and use the P for push command, and I have to at this point, of course, draft lines on top of other lines, or there'd be a program called Make Faces in Ruby. Make Faces would actually fill in all these faces. And you remember, the reason I put these faces there is I want these things to be individual items when I'm done here. So as I go ahead and do this, in the end I want that to be an individual face. I'm going to make that go 1.5. I'm going to make this, that's a little thick. We're going to see that. Let's take this one, 1.5. Let's take the same thing there. And I don't really need to type anything, so I can offset to there, and I can click to there. And now this last set of things I want to offset just a 1/2 inch. Take that, and I'm going to go with 1/2. Now, albeit my thicknesses are off, I've got something that kind of works for me there in terms of it being different pieces. Now in the end you're going to see when you start doing joinery and the like, it might work a little bit different. Now if you look underneath the bottom here, and there you're going to see there's actually a way we could have made this a little bit better to start, but I'm just going to go ahead and draft the top here. There are particular commands by hitting control. You got everything done there, and we don't know that doesn't work there for us, but you can do things potentially like drafting a line from there to there and drafting a line, spacebar, line, if everything was drafted correctly from there to there, and it should start finding everything around there. So I've kind of got the general sense, but realize in the end I would really want these to be the individual pieces so they can break apart and come together. So that all said, let me go ahead and do something we want to do on a regular basis, which is right click, go ahead and make that a group or a component. I'm going to make it a group right now, and the reason I'm going to make it a group is, once again, now I'm going to draft some lines and do some offsets and lay in a piece of glass there. That's another group. So I'm going to go here right now, and I'm going to draft a line just on top of other lines. Because it's a group, it's not going to break them up. And I close it up out there. Now I can actually go ahead, and I'm going to try to use the control key when I do the push this time. So when I go here, I'm going to hit control key, I'm pushing it up. I'm going to make that maybe 1/8 inch glass. That's an 1/8 inch thick. I'm going to now make that a component, and then I'm going to drop it down, because in the end it's going to be, I'm going to want to shrink it down a little bit. I'm going to grab all of it, I'm going to right click, make it a group. In the end it's a little bit tight. I don't have any tolerancing there, so that's going to be an error. But as I go down here, I'm going to go ahead and take that and drop it down some distance into that. I'm going to go underneath here in a second and drop it from underneath. Go up here, flip around. This is where, in fact, if you see that there, I'm going to go ahead and learn how to use my view face style X-ray view, which means I can go ahead and grab the group. Remember, the key to this program is learning how to do groups, because you can move groups without copying and adding. And so my sense is, I'm not going to know where I'm going on this, but my sense is I kind of want it to be right around there. Let's see whether that's the case or not. As I click around here, that's kind of not bad. I'm not certain of this, but now I can go ahead, view, turn my X-ray off, and I now just have to go into this group and select everything. So I'm going to grab the whole group, everything in the group, and I'm going to go to my paint bucket tool, and hopefully this does not explode on me, and I'm going to turn everything into translucent glass, and that does that for me. That's one group. Again, I'm controlling. I don't have anything on layers yet, and now I can kind of grab everything else. I'm sorry, grab all that, grab everything. It's not going to grab what's inside, and I'm going to go ahead and change that to something more painted. So I'm going to paint my house white for the moment, and you're going to see a lot of these are going to be eventually variable driven. So I'm going to go ahead and go with colors here. I'm going to have to do the off-white. I'm going to go ahead with a little off-white here. Click on everything there. Click on everything there. Color 1. And now I've got something that in the end, it's glass. What I'm going to have to do in the end is do my glazing. And we'll see if we can do the glazing eventually by exploding and using a follow me tool. So that glass is a little bit tight in there, so the reality is, as we go ahead and do a section on that, I'm going to go ahead and go to the section tool. We hold the shift key, come halfway down. You start to realize how tight my glass has no tolerance. Therefore, as you get thermal expansion, you're going to have issues. So, and you never get it constructed that way because tolerancing and the like. You also have the fact that in Sketchup, this tends to be then a planar modeler. It models a surface, so it's not as solid like you would have when you cut through, but there are ways to do that with drafting and the like. So I'm going to go ahead and go to View. I'm going to turn off my section planes and go to View, turn off my section cuts, and be left with what is basically the semblance of a window. Now later on you're going to see we would want to actually have had this to be 4 parts, 2 of them being equal, so these 2 would be the same, these two in each of those would have 2 parts as well, so that when we went ahead and wanted to do something like turning on physics, that it would fall apart, or we could do some analysis on that. But that said, right away we're just going to go ahead and start saving these things as we go through, realizing later on we can go ahead and do some adjustment with scaling. So we're going to do a file, save as, know where we're going to put it. We'll put it, call this one now for window 1, and thanks for listening.